Welcome to the Wholesome Healing Collective.
Join us on our podcast for a journey into the hearts of healers from all walks of life, diving deep as we explore meaningful conversations that have the power to inspire, empower, and share life-changing wisdom.
Through this community, we hope to create a welcoming environment where our listeners leave feeling nurtured and uplifted. We are so delighted you are here. My name is Alyssa.
And I'm Renee. Grab a drink, get cozy, and let's dive in.
Welcome to today's episode of the Wholesome Healing Collective podcast. We are here with our very first guest, Josh Parry, and we're so excited to have you on today. I met Josh through the Pause Breathwork program. He was one of my practicum clients, and I so appreciated getting to know him. We're so happy to have you on today. So I'd love to start with our signature question. What is your favorite self-care practice?
Well, it is definitely breathwork. It's been just a life-changing modality that came into my life that's given me the opportunity to really just delve deep inside of me.
I love that. And I had met you inside the Pause global group, so you were already into breathwork before we met. So that's so cool.
Yeah, it was a little journey, just YouTube, lots of YouTube, being guided that way. So to have an actual human was different. It was awesome. So
I love that. You're in the program yourself, so you're coming upon graduation. How's that feeling?
lots of feelings. I've really done a lot of thinking about just the impact that the program has had. Because I've taken a lot of different programs, but it was all informational. And so this program was so transformational. And so I was really just introspecting on what was the difference. And there were a lot of things, but breathwork was pivotal in that. Built into the program were also opportunities to be, I guess, vulnerable, to be seen and heard and witnessed, and all of those things that felt so scary at first. And then now it's like a need. It's like a craving. I just desire that connection at a deeper level now.
Mm-hmm.
I love that.
It's amazing how these modalities open you up in a way that you don't go into the programs expecting. It's kind of hard to capture in words that process. It's like a bonus on top.
Yeah, because as I was signing up, my intention was to learn how to become a facilitator. And I had no idea, like, the side effects, the things that were built into the program, but not advertised.
Yeah, same. I'm curious, how did breathwork find you originally when you started that path of looking on YouTube and finding resources that eventually led you to Pause? What was that first seed that was planted that led you there?
Yeah, so it's probably been 8 years now. Like, there was a therapist lady that came into my life that started teaching me. It was basically awareness, but she wouldn't have called it that. But it was just looking inside for what's going on. And so I took that and ran with it, but it was a very mental exercise. I was like the heart wasn't a part of it at first. It felt too scary to go inside there. And so it was just like, look at me, I'm noticing my thoughts, and it was like a kindergarten, that's where we get to start. But looking back, it felt very just, it was foundational, it was elementary, but it was very mental. And so with that, I was just really noticing or desiring to notice all these patterns in my mind. But there was no concept of my body was also needing attention.
Yeah.
And so I learned hypnosis, I learned NLP. It was all of these modalities that were going to fix me from a mental perspective. And so I was helping clients with that, and I would get them to a place where they were having shifts, but I could tell there was something in the way still. And I was like, what is going on? Like, I'm doing the things, I've learned all these things, and so that's when I started to look at like trauma and how it gets stored in the body, and realizing there were so many times that, like, through journaling, I had like, I broke down and cried, and I was just sobbing. I was like, where are these feelings inside me? And I'm walking around and they're so heavy, but I don't know they're even there until they're too big and I have to let them out. And so that was really when breathwork found me. It was just the idea that all of this is stored inside, and through the breath, the mind gets to take a little break, and the body's like, okay, let's do this. Let's release these things. So
I feel that. That's a great way of putting that. Allowing the mind to take a rest so that the body can process and do that work. One thing that Sam always says that has stuck with me is the body knows what to do. If we just allow the mind to step out of the way and out of the driver's seat, the body knows. We don't have to understand. It can release as we give it those tools of the breath, and it's beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah. And it'll only release what you're ready to see or feel. Yeah. So as this springtime approaches, feeling into the new beginnings of the energetic new year and the just planting new seeds, what is going on for you this season, Josh?
so I graduate in 2 weeks, and as part of just discovering me, I've been really aware. Well, I've been trying to become aware of my motivation on what I'm creating, and is it coming from like an old wound that I'm just like trying to still feel like if I'm a healer or helper, is it just my 4-year old that wants to be good enough, you know? And so part of that, as I'm creating, I'm just noticing all of that. Like, where's the energy coming from? Is it like a wounded place inside me, or is there this creation energy that is just like gushing out, you know? Um, so I'm feeling very called to retreats. I'd like to do a retreat each month to start. I haven't done that, but there's a lady that does a in-person breathing locally here, and it's for an hour, and we'll go. I attend, and it's like a bunch of strangers, and then we do the breathing, and then it's like this big emotional thing, and then we go our separate ways, out into the traffic, out into the world, and it's just like there's this longing for more depth. And so I'm like, okay, there's even 3 days, a weekend or something, where we're just kind of unplugged, we're connected, we're going inward and just experiencing each other in a more in-depth way. And it feels like healing happens exponentially in that setting. It's not just a linear thing. And so a lot of the things that I've been using to process through my emotions, breathwork being one of them, I just want to incorporate that, and then have this. So, if just as a side note, I feel like I've been looking a lot at repressed anger.
Mm.
But also we repress so many other things. It's not just anger. I was like, I think I repress curiosity. I was like, nobody's ever told me I can repress that, or playfulness or pleasure. And so just, I think we're here to experience all of it. The anger's it's a teacher, and the curiosity, the pleasure, the playfulness, like all of it. So just mixing that into a weekend where we get to explore just all aspects of humanity.
That's so amazing. Renee and I are doing a retreat too, and we were feeling into those different qualities, the power, the play, the pleasure. And
Mm,
so it's so funny to hear how similar our desires are, even though I haven't shared that with you.
yeah, that's so cool.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. Um, so you mentioned that we need to have all of those, the curiosity, the anger, the pleasure. It all really paints that full picture. And you had mentioned that you felt like you were also repressing, I don't know if that's the word, but joy. You haven't been feeling joy. And do you want to expand more on that?
Yeah, so the universe gave me multiple experiences in a row that just allowed me to put these puzzle pieces together. And through breathwork, I will often get insights or like new knowledge, new downloads. And so I was breathing last week, and I had an intention to experience more joy. I feel like there's joy in my life, but I'm not seeing it. Like I'm blocking myself from viewing it. And so my intention was to just notice those things in my breathwork session. And so towards the end, there was a song playing, and it had like probably a piano or a keyboard or something, and it was like two notes together, and it was just it was keeping the beat. But it was the same two notes over and over and over. And it was like in that state, I honed in on that. I just became really aware of those two notes. And it was like it had been there for the whole song, um, but it represented metaphorically joy. And that if I only focus on joy, that's awesome. And it might get actually annoying because that's all I would experience. It would be like the dun 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 dun, and be like, okay, enough joy, you know. And so it just became aware. I became aware that it was like I need that grief, I need the misery, I need the sadness. That's what creates the richness of life. It's all of it. And so I think the next day my Face ID stopped working on my phone. And so I was like frustrated. I was like, this has worked for 3 years. Like, what's going on? And so I went to reset it. And to reset it, it has you put your face in the circle. And then you have to like look around, and it like lights up as your face is detected. And so I'm like going around, and I couldn't get the top part of it to light up. So I was feeling more frustrated. And so I had to reset it and try it again, try it again. I was like, what is going on? And that's when I became aware that I needed, even the frustration was a teacher. Like that created that depth in that moment. So just all of it.
Yes, I love that. The richness of life, experiencing joy without the lows of the grief and the sadness is not the same. So beautiful.
I like how that ties into what you had mentioned about the box that we can often get stuck into, and the programming that we are often unaware of. And it makes me think of this book called The Big Leap, and I can't remember the author, but it talks about how we have a thermostat of emotions and we have this comfort zone of temperature or emotions that we live in on a regular basis. And if we start to exceed our comfort zone of temperature and things get too joyful or too ecstatic, we'll tend to bring ourselves down back to that comfort zone because we're not used to it. And we're like, it's too much, it's too hot. Bring ourselves back down. And then the reverse is true too. If we start to feel too low and too sad or angry or emotions we're not used to on the other end of the spectrum, we'll avoid that and we'll say, no, 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 bring ourselves back up instead of allowing that comfort zone to expand and feel this range and feel that range and expand it and expand it and expand it so that we can have that bigger ceiling of emotion to feel, so that we're not avoiding one end or sabotaging ourselves on the other end to bring us back into our box. And I feel like breath work is that beautiful way to titrate in both directions. It allows us to dip our toe into the trauma and feel it in a safe way and allow ourselves to integrate bit by bit. And at the same time, it is a beautiful way to go into that expression. And when we can let ourselves be more free and move in our breath and make sound in our breath and find that expression, then we get to dip into the joy. And I think that was a big paradigm shift for me in the pause program and going through breath, because I was one of those people too that if I took a meditation class or a breathwork class, I'd just be breathing, like no sound, no movement. Like I don't want anyone to look at me or think anything. And then I go through the program and I'm like the biggest mover when I breathe. I'm doing like yoga poses, I'm moving, I'm shaking, I love it. So that was a little bit of a tangent. Coming back full circle on your point of joy and that duality of feeling all the spectrum, bringing that back to breath work is just a beautiful way to titrate ourselves into feeling everything. You said something beautiful, and it actually triggered something in me that I'm working on myself. And it was two things that you had mentioned, this concept of creating life in the presence. And then you also mentioned something that was coming alive in you was seeing the potentiality in people, maybe more than they see in themselves. And I think that is one of the most powerful gifts that we can develop as facilitators and space holders is, my yoga teacher called it holding space for people's greatness. So no matter what is being presented to you outwardly, you're holding space for their highest good and their highest expression. And sometimes that's difficult. So I would love to hear how that kind of transpired in you, and maybe how that revealed itself to you in a session or with a student.
Yeah, I think that's come over time. And I think it's a perspective thing. So for whatever reason, we can't see our greatness in ourselves. We can see, it's a lot easier to see the flaws and the limitations. And so what I've been experiencing as I'm interacting with different people, it's like I get to hang out in my heart now. I get to land in my body, and my body doesn't have the judgment, it has the curiosity.
Mm-hmm.
And so then it's like, I was on a call yesterday with a young lady, and I was just like, are you going to write a book? And like, she almost was shocked, was like, why would I write a book, kind of thing. And I think if I were to ask you guys if you were going to write a book, maybe you'd be like, oh, I'm in the middle of one. But most of us are like, why would I write a book? And I think it's from that place where we can't see how amazing our life has been. All of the ups and downs to somebody else would be just so intriguing and amazing, but we see it from like this regret place instead. And it's just like, no, check it out. You did this, and then this was a struggle, and you overcame that, and you found a way to do this. And even if your life doesn't look the way you think it should, like that, the ups and down of all of it, that goes back to the richness and the depth. If we can see just how much we've been able to experience, maybe it wasn't intentional, but it was like magical still. So I just hang out in that place as I'm interacting with people, and I just see them from that place where I'm like, there's this awe, and I'm just like, wow, they have no idea. They don't know what they've gone through. They don't know just how amazing they are just as they are. Like nothing to fix, nothing to change. There's awe. So that's the I like to send that awe like energetically.
I was just going to ask, how do you allow what you see to breathe life into them?
Yeah, because if I say the words, you're awesome, you're amazing, and our critical mind checks, and it's like, oh, I don't have any evidence of that, so I'm going to reject it. But if I hang out here in my energetic space, in that awe, we pick up on each other's energy all the time. Like we're just naturally doing that. And so if I send that awe, and maybe I just plant, that's the seed that I plant a seed, and it's not like, it's just like a curious question. It's like, what about you writing a book? And then I beam that energy over, and I just let it land, and it may marinate for years. But it's in them then. It's just like it's a new thought where it's like packaged in my belief in them.
That's beautiful. Do you have any particular practices or suggestions, maybe practices for yourself when you plant those seeds, how you nurture them and allow that growth to take place?
If I can do that in myself with that same awe, I mean, that's the goal.
Yeah.
And so that belief, where I believe in myself, where there's awe for what I've gone through and what I've experienced, it's the same thing. I just get to do it internally too. And then it's really, I like the idea of softening into instead of efforting.
Yeah.
So there's a feeling there, and breath work created space inside me for me to even notice that this was a thing. Otherwise, it's just that effort. It's the masculine, just go, go, go from up here. And I'm like, okay, hold on. I've tried that, and that sucks. And so the softening into is it's the trust in God. It's the falling backwards into a feather bed.
The surrendering.
Surrendering. Yeah. Yeah. The trust, the surrendering, the allowing. And so I think that's where nurturing takes place. That's where the seed gets nurtured, is not effort. It's just allowing. It's the being. It's the surrendering into.
That totally resonates. For me, that's a good reminder too, that constant surrendering. I think something that I fall into personally is I'll have maybe a revelation about an experience and forgiveness or gratitude in that space and surrender. But then the next day, it's back into that programming, back into that pattern of the hustle and the forcing. And then, another practice comes around. It's like, oh yeah, I'm soft. And it's like you have to keep coming back and keep coming back and keep coming back. And it absolutely gets easier to recognize and surrender. But it's definitely that ongoing practice. I can't wait for that moment. This is probably not real, but where it's just a constant surrender and you live in that space. But there's always that duality too. But that's a beautiful reminder. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I think that duality is the gift, though.
Yeah.
That if we got to that place of constant surrender, it'd be like constant joy.
Yeah, you're right.
Like we actually want that.
Then we just
desire
be
that.
floating and not taking action on anything.
Yeah. Yeah. And this reminded me of the it's like the cocoon. If we go back to the box metaphor, so when I was breathing a group a month ago or so, there was like 16 of them, and they were all laying still. And it dawned on me that it looked like they were all in coffins. And when I look back on my life with that in mind, I realized because I was so numb, I was so disconnected from my body and my emotions, it felt like I was flatlined. That my emotions fit in just this line along life. There was no ups and downs. It was like I was in a coffin emotionally. And so the idea, like that box, I put that around me. Well, and some of it was societal, but some of it was like I didn't want to get hurt. And so I put a box around my heart. And I was like, I'm just going to live from here. This is perfect, but then I didn't experience love or gratitude or heartache. It was just flatlined. And so removing that box, it's the cocoon. The cocoon is soft, and that's where the transformation takes place. And then it's the evolution where we go out into the butterfly, but we don't stay there. Like that would be the constant surrender if we were the butterfly and we would just fly. But we also we get to go back into the cocoon again. It's this constant evolution. So I'm going to be doing a podcast called Evolve Again, because it's not just once, it's the revolving door of growth. And that's the duality creates that.
I love that. And he's doing the podcast with Hannah from Breathwork, and she's also inside of our Little Women's our women's circle that meets monthly. So that's so cool, that connection.
Yeah,
That is so cool.
Yeah, she's awesome.
Yeah.
I love that analogy. That is so perfect. And I think it's a beautiful way to illustrate the constant expand and contract that we experience, and a wonderful way to maybe reframe those contractive times where we take a step forward and then we take a step back and we're like, why am I here again? I don't like these contractions. But it's like, that's the cocoon time. That's the time where there is growth happening that might not be seen on the outside, and we will get to expand again and fly again. And that's just part of the cycle. It's wonderful.
Yeah, and I love that. That kind of gives you permission to continue to grow and to continue to evolve and take on new education and new wings, new growth. And I just think that's so beautiful, that analogy.
What is your what do you feel like that next step of growth is for you? What is coming alive in you right now? I mean, obviously breath work and those skills, but is there anything else that you feel like is coming alive that maybe you didn't expect?
Well, I definitely feel, well, I'm feeling into the idea of like having a world where the heart is, I don't know how to say this yet. Like we've been very focused on mental health, but the emotional health, like that's different. There's a difference there. Like
Absolutely.
the amount of safety that I've experienced in the last 6 months, I didn't know what safety was. Like this word safety is like, well, of course you're safe. You know, nobody's hitting you in the face. You know, there's no war going on in my backyard. But the emotional safety, I didn't know that was a thing. And so it feels like many of the people I interact with are in the same place, that if I were to say, do you feel safe to feel? Like that would be a foreign, that question itself would be like, what? I don't know. I don't know how to comprehend that. I don't know how to answer it. And so I'd like to create, this feels so big, but this world where the heart gets to be on the outside and we get to be like the idea of vulnerability. Vulnerability is only a thing because it feels scary until it's not scary anymore. My little dog will lay like on his back. For some animals, that's vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
But he's just like, no, I'm safe. I can hang out here. And so if I say he is overcoming his vulnerability, that doesn't make sense to him. He just feels safe. So that's the world I want to help create, is where vulnerability isn't a thing because there's so much safety.
That's so neat.
And
And
so,
it's so needed because the type of breath work I do, in-person breath work, I meet a lot of different people and we're doing breath work for the first time. And when I tell them we're going to be sitting with emotions, like we're not going too deep, but it's today's emotions, maybe yesterday's if it's early in the morning. And the look on their face when I say that is like they are scared to meet their emotions face to face. And then obviously I create some safety around it. But initially they're like, I don't want to see those. I don't want to look at those. I don't want to feel those. And it is safe to feel. It is okay to feel. So creating that world will be so special.
yeah, what a powerful vision.
Yeah.
That's the richness of life. When we're afraid of emotions, we're afraid to live. And then we're flatlined once and we're in the box.
Mm.
So we need that safety. And for me, it's been lots of people in the program that I've been like, can I feel this in front of them? And am I still okay? They're not laughing. They're not telling me I'm a wuss or whatever. Like, it's okay for me to feel this. What if I do this? Is this still okay? And Alyssa helped me on a coaching session where you had me, do you remember where you had me stretch my hands out in front of me? And I was like, can I take up this much space in the world? And it was like, that was the box, the coffin that I felt like I had to just like, I won't take up any space. I won't be too loud. I won't have a voice. I won't have an opinion. And little by little, it's through these safe containers of other people that are providing it for me to speak or to laugh or to have pleasure or to have pain and to still be okay in all of that. Like that's why that we need each other for that.
Mm.
I can't get there by myself. My nervous system won't let me.
Yeah, it's so just so beautiful to be held by somebody in a safe container. It's so special. Like you said, you can't do it on your own. You can't really just like create this bubble the same way that somebody else can hold you through a process like that.
Mhm.
For those that are listening that maybe think are interested in this concept of safety and establishing that, what do you feel like is a baby step towards that safety, whether it's a practice that maybe they start with themselves and then move into working with others, or maybe a resource for connection right off the bat with someone that can help them establish that? Do you think, I mean, obviously we love breath work and that's a beautiful way to start, but I think it would just be wonderful to throw out some options and give people some ideas of maybe where they can start with themselves and maybe where they can start with others as well.
Yeah, I think a lot of this has been conditioned and programmed into us, just the beliefs on what is acceptable. And so, even like making a list of what are the beliefs I have about
Mhm.
anger, I actually had a spreadsheet. I forgot about this. I had a spreadsheet because I had no concept of emotions. I mean, I knew about happy, and you know, that was kind of it. So I Googled, like, what are the emotions? And this website gave me like 67 or something. I was like, oh, that's more than one. I thought happy was it. And so what are all these? And of course I had heard of these, all these different emotions, but I put them in a spreadsheet, and then I made a column that was like, how do I experience this today? And then it was like, what did I learn as a child about this emotion? And like, how did my parents teach me or show me? And it wasn't just parents, right? It was society. And so that was a big awareness that I was like, most of them, they were like, oh, I don't experience this, I don't experience this. And so that was an awareness exercise. And then even the idea of like, okay, if I show anger in front of somebody, what does that mean about me? How do I think they'll perceive me? And how does that feel in my body? I can feel right now, just talking about anger, there's like this, it's amping up. I'm like, oh, why are you talking about anger right now? So it's still living inside me, to various degrees. And so I think just getting really clear on what your own belief is about an emotion, and maybe discovering, where did you get that thing? Do you
Yeah.
want to keep it? Because that judgment is a good way to not feel. As long as we have judgment for an emotion, it's so hard to go there. And so, but also honoring the judgment, because it was doing a good thing for us too.
Yeah,
We're
it
trying.
protected us at a
Yeah.
time. Yeah. Yeah, that's powerful, especially because we don't often realize that the beliefs we hold didn't necessarily originate from inside ourselves and oftentimes originated from that programming, like you mentioned. And just that awareness in and of itself can be so powerful.
Yeah.
Mm.
Is there anything else you'd like to say before we wrap this up, Josh?
I've really enjoyed this.
Me too.
Yeah. We've enjoyed having you on. It's so cool. I'm getting ready for your own podcast, so that'll be really exciting. And where can our listeners find you? Are you on Facebook, Instagram?
So I am on both. I have some push pull with social media. I'm just really reflective on when I post. I want it to be from within me, not for like marketing purposes. Like, I want it to come from inside me. And so I'm on Instagram. It's I am Joshua Parry. And yeah, when I post, it's because it's coming up. It's alive in me. And so we'll see if I start posting more. I'm just doing it. I'm doing it for me, not for the world.
I love that. And you have a website too for your business?
Uh, Not anymore. I'm
Okay.
transitioning. Yeah, it was altastateofmind.com. I was a mindset coach, and it just doesn't resonate anymore. That's not. I mean, that's where I was, and that chapter ended, and so now I'm at this place where I'm feeling into the new name.
Mm,
A new stage of evolution.
Mm-hmm.
that's so cool.
Your website is in its own little cocoon right now.
Yeah.
Well, when we listen to your podcast as it starts, then it'll be neat to hear those things as they evolve, and you have the new website and we'll say, oh, we know when that was being created.
Yeah. As you asked that, I felt just this permission to be in this space of not knowing.
Yeah.
So yeah, thank you for that.
That's so beautiful.
It's all unfolding in perfect timing.
Thank you so much for joining us today, Josh. And we hope our listeners have a beautiful rest of the day.